My guest is a Seattle comedy veteran. He's one of the nicest dudes I've met in comedy, and he's also bipolar and has been to jail. I'm excited to welcome John Gardner.
Oh, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Adam.
Of course, man.
Just get my diagnoses right into the intro. That's my biggest credit is having a mental health illness condition.
I wanted to create some like suspense, like, oh, what are we going to be talking about in this episode? Like, you've got a couple really like I struggle with mental health stuff, and like the stories that you have associated with that and your journey in that, I think people are going to find really interesting. But it's a teaser, you know. Let me turn down these levels a little bit. But thanks for coming on, man. We've been talking about doing this for how long? Like 2 years or something?
Yeah, it's been it's great to finally be here. I mean, I've been enjoying listening to the podcast myself. So it's like, when am I going to be a guest, Adam?
Which has been your favorite episode?
Probably the one with your dad, just because, I mean, it's just crazy to me that you have parents. You just, just you talking with your dad. It was just such a, because I know you as just this guy that all you do is grind and just do comedy, just like a madman. And so the fact that you had an upbringing and your dad is this business executive, just showed me another side of you.
For sure.
And he's a super interesting guy.
Yeah. You mentioned though, the dynamic with him and I was like different than what you expected.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of like if I did an episode with my dad, he'd be talking about how much he loved me and he'd be busting my balls.
Yeah.
He just sounded like he was talking to Charlie Rose or Larry King or.
I didn't realize how much experience he has just like doing interviews and shit like that. So like when we went into it, I'm like, damn, he's polished. Like you never know what you're going to get with people in interviews. But yeah, I also think like that was just always our dynamic. Like from a young age, I remember being like 10 years old, and if I wanted to do something, he would like, I'd need to have an action plan and shit. And so like, he'd be like, it'd be like executive coaching in the 4th grade.
Need to draw out a 6 Sigma diagram for your sleepover plans with your friends.
What was the Rio or what the fuck, the square matrix, the risk, issues, opportunities, or
risk, opportunity, threat, and
weaknesses.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. It was all kinds of stuff like that. But I don't know. I just spent time with him over the holidays, and like, dude, he's a couple things that are funny. Number one, like he's full blown into chess now. Like and he tracks all his shit. Like he's super competitive with it, and he's definitely getting better. But so is my younger brother, who's fiercely like competitive. So those two are like hammering it out. And then we got the Oculus. Like I got it for my dad for Christmas, the VR headset.
Yeah.
It is one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen, to see people play it. Like, have you ever watched somebody?
I've never been around an Oculus. No.
It is hilarious. Like, cause they're just standing there and just like fucking throwing air punches, making all the sounds, and they have no idea what's around them or anything. And it was cracking me up. But John Gard, who,
yes,
he's very similar to you in name. He was telling me a story about like he put his son down to sleep, and it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and John got up, put on the Oculus, and you set up like a guardian boundary so that you don't run into shit or whatever.
Yeah.
And when you get up against it, it shows you what it looks like for real. It grays out, but it looks like almost like the Ring or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he's playing Beat Saber at like 4 a.m, and he hits up against the border, and his son is just sitting on the couch watching him, staring like out of a horror movie or something. And he's like, my heart literally jumped, like it skipped a beat, because you're so, I can't really explain it without you doing it, but like it's so immersive. It's incredible. Like Nikita and I were talking last night. I'm pretty sure they're going to do live comedy in VR, like as a realistic option at some point.
Wow. So the fans would be, or just the comic is using an Oculus and he sees like a crowd that he's performing
I think
to?
both. You'd be like, you can sit in as, you can do it as a fan to like, God, I love the Oculus. I'm so like hyped on. I can't stop talking.
No, I mean, if we could just cut down the open mic attendance of comics by just giving them an Oculus, I mean, I would start a fundraising campaign to, you know, you get a few open mics, and if you don't make any progress, then you get an Oculus.
Yeah.
And you got to do the Oculus for 6 months.
I think for certain people in comedy too, the Oculus is like a good option, because like a lot of comics just see the audience as just like, you know, a being that makes the noise they want them to make or doesn't make the noise. So like if you're just very you don't see the audience as human beings, it's perfect for somebody like that, right? It's like, just make the sound I like, and if you don't like, I don't know, that the model of fucking headliner traveling across the country each weekend to perform, it's crazy it's kind of lasted as long as it has.
Yeah, I mean, but it seems like the only way to do it, in terms of, you can't come up with new material fast enough to be able to continue doing new material in your own city. So you got to travel, and Zoom shows were terrible.
Did you do any?
I did one, and the audience seemed to enjoy themselves. Like, I could see them laughing as I was telling jokes, but I felt like the first 30 seconds after I started talking, I felt like I was staring off a cliff, because you're just not getting any reaction whatsoever because they're muted. You have no idea if you're even, you have no idea if you're even articulating what you want to. And then you get used to watching them, you know, laugh in silence, but it just felt like I was
delay too.
Yeah. And it feels like you have no sense of timing or interplay with the crowd in terms of when to like start your next joke or next punchline. And then too, it just feels like you're in an aquarium. It was not fun. I mean, I'm glad they had a good time. I mean, that's what it's about, but I don't know if I could ever get into a rhythm doing those.
Do you think it was entertaining, like, for some of the audience to just see how awkward it was? Like, because I could see somebody like, let's just fucking watch these comedians, like the sadistic people on the internet. Because I don't know why anyone would want to sit down and watch. Like, someone would have to pay me to watch that. I don't want to watch someone do comedy in their living room. Like,
yeah, it's amazing. I think people were just so starved for entertainment. But I mean, how many people out there have paid to watch 2 Zoom comedy shows? It's something that you attend if your boss pays the comedian, you know, for the Christmas party.
That's true. It's ridiculous. Have you had to sit through any?
No. I've done a few holiday parties. I mean, the show that I was on was a showcase, and I watched all the other comedians.
Yeah. But like, for your actual job, like if somebody brought in comedy like that for your job, do you think you would just kind of get up and leave? Or
no, I would for sure. You would watch it, and it would be a win-win, because if it went bad, I could tell all my coworkers, like, yeah, that's how hard this is.
Yeah.
Or if it went well, I'd enjoy it. So I would for sure watch it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. It is. I have to imagine some people fucking cleaned up doing that, because you could just have shows all day if you want. Like, if you, instead of just like shows at night, you could do them all day long, like charge less, but just have them more frequent. I mean, it's, for a certain comedian, it is like, it's actually preferred over live performance. I mean, the ones that are like, they don't really give a shit about what the audience, like, if they enjoy it or not, or like, for the hackiest comedian, Zoom comedy is like a golden ticket.
Yeah, and I think they got paid a lot of money. I mean, our the company that we work with, I got to go to their holiday party, and they paid this service to lead the holiday party. It was like a couple like sketch comedy types. Maybe they were improv background, but they just led us through these games. And it was like a couple $1,000 that they made in an hour. And there's 2 of them. So it's just
were the games
$1,000.
good?
They were okay, but
It's like team building type.
Yeah, but it was, I mean, these people that were running the game were pretty much reading off a script. I mean, they were animated, but pretty easy $1,000.
Yeah. That's fucking great. Well, let's get into like some of your backstory and stuff, because we know you're bipolar. We know you went to jail. We know you do comedy, but it's
really my only value as a guest, as a comedian.
When did you start comedy?
Started when I was 20 years old, right before I turned 21, which was 2007, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
2007, 2008.
Jesus, man, you've been doing it a while.
A long time.
I
with not much to show for it. Yeah.
In 2007.
Yeah. So I was 20, just turning 21, and it was December 07, and it was I was full blown. I wasn't at the peak of my manic phase. I was in the kind of towards the tail end of a 9-month manic episode. And
what did that look like?
Oh man. So, I mean, with my version of bipolar, and people have different variations of it, but I have what my doctors have told me is a textbook case.
Is it 1 or 2?
They said it was probably 2, but because of the amount of drugs and alcohol I was taking during the manic episodes, that it's kind of elevated. The behavior is elevated to a 1.
Okay. And what's the main difference between those two? Because like Mike DeVore, who's been on multiple times, he's bipolar and talks about it way too much. But and then my grandfather, one of them was bipolar as well. So like I know some of the behavior and stuff, but I don't know the difference between those two things.
Yeah, I think bipolar 2 is a little milder, and maybe the episodes don't occur with as much irregularity. I think too, when you're getting the bipolar 1, people are having the not just the illusions of grandeur. I don't know how to say that, which is what I had, but thinking they're like God or the Messiah.
Yeah.
And I never thought I was God or sent by God, but I definitely felt like I was special and destined to do great things when I was in my manic episodes.
Was it something that you had like blips of when you were younger, or did it just exhibit when you were?
Yeah, a little bit. So it started out as just depressions. When I was 13 or 14, I would just go into like a total funk where my body would feel tense. I'd be very reticent, like almost taciturn, like I'd barely talk.
How do you have great vocab, dude?
Yeah, thank you.
With these vocab words.
It's the only reason I came on is to flex the language.
Intellectual side.
So I would, for 2 or 3 weeks, I would just completely shut down. It would just be a constant just cavalcade of just negative thoughts, just beating myself. Every thought I had, either about my own future or about my own self-worth, was just negative.
Okay.
And it was just hard for me to socialize during that time. And I had what's called anhedonia, where you don't really enjoy anything. And then I'd snap out of it after 3 weeks. And that's when I would feel almost a rush. And I'd be talking more than usual and feeling really confident, but only for like a week or so. And then I'd kind of stabilize. And that's when my parents thought like, oh, maybe this isn't depression, maybe it's bipolar. But I wasn't doing anything outrageous or inappropriate then. I just felt really good. And then
when you turned 20 though, like how did it exhibit itself?
Yeah.
In the inappropriate ways.
So, when it first changed was my senior year of high school, fall semester. I went into a depression that was 4 months instead of the usual couple weeks. Mm-hmm. But it was milder. And then when I came out of that one, it was probably around springtime, like March of my senior year. That's when I really went into my first full manic episode of just, having to be the center of attention, like talking like incessantly, like where people couldn't get me to shut up.
Oh yeah.
Also, I started I tried to form like a political party. Like I crafted my own like fact sheet of, what this political party would be that I started. To me, it was basically taking what I thought was the best of both the Democrats and the Republicans and trying to get teachers in my school to sign on.
In hindsight, like, do you still stick behind some of the ideology?
No.
Like, okay,
no, absolutely not.
It would be kind of cool if like you came up with something that's like, this is a great option if I actually follow through with it.
No. None of my ideas, all the ideas you come up with, your manic, are trash.
Yeah.
I mean, there are great artists that have probably discovered great things and created great things while manic, but not me.
Yeah.
I mainly was more into the, I guess, hedonistic. Like all I wanted to do was pursue pleasure, whether it was trying to get people to laugh, doing drugs, getting drunk, chasing. I don't want to say chasing women, but pursuing
lust.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's all.
Well, my buddy went to high school with you, so this was like at the same time you guys were in school, or
yeah, he was one grade below me.
Okay, so John Tirey, he was the valedictorian for his class or whatever. So like you guys kind of knew of each other or whatever, but did he see any of this stuff?
Yeah, probably. So I mainly knew him because we had a Spanish class together, I think when he was a freshman and I was a sophomore. And that's when I was kind of depressed or neutral for the most part. I was pretty shy back then. But
what was he like?
He was like one of the most popular guys in the school, in his class.
Dude, he could be a killer comedian if he wanted to be. He's one of the funniest fucking dudes I've ever met.
Yeah, I mean, very charismatic.
Oh yeah.
So probably the only thing that he saw me do was we had an assembly for our spring sports program. So all the sports teams were down on like the gymnasium floor, kind of giving like pep talks about, come out and watch us.
Yeah.
And I think I went up there and said something about how all the women on our tennis team are hot, so you should come out and watch us. And immediately, like, our coach like grabbed the microphone from me and like could tell that I was just like about to go off into even more inappropriate territory. And then I had to, I think, apologize to my team. And so if he was at that assembly, he would have.
See that?
Yeah,
that's funny. No, those moments, like, that must be like the worst fucking environment to be in for somebody that is manic and like oh, this is my opportunity right now.
And thank God there was no cell phone cameras back. I mean, this is 2005 when I graduated, so, and it could have been worse. I was about to ask this girl to the prom right after doing this. That was my plan, and thankfully my coach came in and just grabbed the mic from me before I could even bury myself further.
Dude, it's when I quit substances, I was doing like so much nitrous every day that I came off a crazy amount of like pills and shit, and I went into like the equivalent of like a manic episode just by behaviorally. I was doing a lot of the same things, and fuck, man, like they threw me into detox, luckily. But there were a few days where I was doing, like, I was the same type of behavior. Like, my mom had a lunch that she had planned, and there were like 12 ladies over, and it was a ladies' lunch. Okay, like they were all proper, and my like tweaker, like manic ass came upstairs, saw them. One of them said hi, and then I just sat at the table and just started like saying everything that I possibly could talk about. And I remember just the expression on my mom's face, like, that just like, get him, like, I think it was one of the few times my mom's ever kicked me out of like something that she had socially. But to have that, like, to be your age when you were going through that, like, that just it must have been so confusing, right? Because you had no context. Like, it was just.
Well, yeah, it was confusing when I would come out of the manic episode. When you're in it, you feel great.
Yeah.
You feel like you're awesome. And I would look back and think about my depressed self and think, oh, that's not me. That guy was sick. That guy's a loser.
Yeah.
Now I'm me. Now I feel normal and good. Now I'm awesome. And then when I was depressed, I would just feel so guilty about what I did in the past 6 months while manic, and just thinking like, wow, it's such a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So I was so evil, but then I would also not feel great about being depressed either. So it was pretty miserable, vicious cycle for a while there.
So how did stand-up come into play?
So my worst manic episode, the longest one, and the one where it was the most severe in terms of how great I felt about myself and what I was doing behavior-wise, was when I was just finished my sophomore year at college. I'd come back to Seattle, and I'd been depressed that entire academic year.
Were you at Tulane?
I was
okay.
Yeah, Tulane.
So you were gone for that year.
Yeah, I was gone, and I was depressed the whole year. In fact, when I started the year, I got a letter saying I was going to lose my academic scholarship because my grades for my manic freshman year were so bad. So that year, I was sophomore year depressed. I got like a 4.0 GPA, come back to Seattle in June and start going into a manic episode. And that one was, I mean, so bad. I was working a job. I had this like internship where I was making like $15 an hour, which was a lot of money back then. I stopped showing up to it. I was buying and selling cocaine and weed. I was hanging out at Rick's nightclub, which was this mafia-owned strip club.
In Seattle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much dressing like a suitcase pimp and trying to bang strippers. And then ultimately...
Wait, what was the internship? Like,
it was at a biotech company. I got the job through friends of my parents, and
Okay.
I was working as like a facilities assistant. So I was going through the lab, like inventorying hazardous chemicals and writing safety manuals and just helping out with random odd jobs.
and what were you like at that job? Like, were you...
For the most part, pretty chill. But then as the manic episode got more severe, like pretty over the top. I didn't have too many run-ins there. It was mostly my bad behavior was occurring outside. Only one time did my boss come in and talk to me, and it's like, hey, you can't be on your cell phone like talking all day to your friends.
Yeah.
With the door closed. Like nobody else is allowed to do that here.
Yeah. So, okay, but you're living this double life, and like, was it every night that you were going out to Rick's and shit?
I would say pretty much. I mean, I was spending money as fast as I could. I had this big savings, like a few $1,000s in savings that I spent in a matter of probably a couple weeks to a
Jesus.
month. And not just at Rick's, but buying drugs, using them.
And
My parents kicked me out, and then I went to live with a friend, and then he kicked me out after a few days.
Really?
Yeah, I was paying rent at like his house where he rented out a bunch of rooms, and I was kicked out. And
Why'd he kick you out?
because I threw a party, and when my one of the roommates tried to kick some people out of the party, I got in a fight with them.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so how does this all lead to
sorry.
stand up?
Yeah, sorry. Just
No, I'm curious. Like I'm
So
interested in how you ended up.
So I had enough embarrassing experiences culminating with me being banned from Rick's nightclub.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd you do?
They got, I think some of the dancers, one of the dancers got mad at me because I short sold her on a bag of weed, or that's what she accused me of at least. And then, told the manager that, oh, sorry, I just hit this mic, told the manager that I was selling weed to them. And then they wanted me out of there because they don't want some guy, getting their employees high.
Yeah.
So I was embarrassed, and I just impulsively decided to just drive to LA. And I lived out of my car in LA for a couple weeks, and that's where I tried stand-up for the first time.
In LA?
Yeah, so I got there, and I was like, what am I going to do here? And then I thought I was funny. So I thought, my goal of being there was to be famous. And I figured the fastest way to do that was to do stand up.
Dude, this is incredible. I didn't know any of that. So where did you go up for the first time though?
I went up at the Hollywood or Melrose Improv. They had a little garage on the side called like the Comedy Lab or something like that. I think it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just signed up for the open mic there.
How'd you do?
I think I got laughs mainly on shock value. I think I had shoplifted like a fifth of Tanqueray and drank, I think, almost half of it before I went on stage. So even though I was manic, I was still nervous. Maybe that's why it's bipolar 2.
Yeah.
So I still had some sense of, potential failure. But I think I got some laughs on shock value just because I was up there talking about, just crazy stuff.
Yeah, it seems like you probably wouldn't see the light either. Like it just like you'd be a hard person to get off stage once you're on there.
If I'm remembering, I think they played the music on me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I believe
I'm
that.
pretty sure that's what happened.
This camera is just bothering me for a second. Hold on 1 second. Oh, you look good, actually. I'm sorry. How dare I interrupt you?
No,
so you're living out of your car. You fucking did this mic. Then what happened?
Yeah. So when I first got to LA, I had some money and I was, sleeping in my car at the beach.
This was after the internship?
Yeah. I pretty much just bailed on the internship. And
is this like the middle of the summer then?
Yeah, it's like July at this point.
Okay.
I think it's after July 4th, probably, mid to late July. And so I'm just down there and I'm spending all my money. And eventually things just kind of spiral worse and worse. Like I dropped off a bunch of my clothes at a dry cleaners near Melrose, but then couldn't find them when it was time to go pick it up. Like I could not find the dry cleaners.
What the fuck?
So I'm down there without clothes. And then
and you were sleeping at the beach?
Yeah, in my car. And then eventually I met some guys.
Wait, how does that, like, what were you in the front seat or like what?
I think I was just front seat, like leaned back.
Did you ever have any weird like incidents with that?
No. I mean, other than weird incidents that I created. But and then I crashed at a guy's house for a couple nights. But then he kicked me out. It was like kind of like young hipster artist guy who had like a bunch of people coming through his house all the time.
You were a fucking good looking kid, right? Like you're a handsome guy now. So like this could have turned into a lot of different things for you. Like,
yes, it could have. I mean, I had one incident there of it almost, being sexually assaulted. This is when I'd pretty much hit rock bottom. I think I was walking along Hollywood Boulevard or Sunset or one of those. And some guy asked me if I wanted to get high in his motel room and just on the street. And I was like, yeah, sure. I thought we were just going to smoke weed. And I go in there, I go into his hotel room
just
with him,
crystal,
and he's smoking crack.
Oh,
and he's got porn on the TV, and he's like, hey, I'm going to jack off. Do you want to jack off with me? And I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Like, I just ran out of the motel room. So that's probably the only like people taking advantage of me situation I got into. But otherwise,
it's just only men, dude. Like only dudes would like smoke crack and then just have porn on TV. I'm gonna jack off. Do you want to? It's just so weird.
It's about what I should have expected when somebody asks you if you want to get high on a busy street.
I mean, when you're young though, it's like you didn't have any experience with something like that, so it's just like I don't know. Those people. That's LA and Hollywood it's a dangerous place for like the wrong people. There's
a lot of beautiful, glamorous people doing cool things. And there's kind of an underbelly of it, of a lot of really sketchy people. I mean, it's just a big city. And I remember so many people when I was down there just being like, you need to go home.
Really?
And get back with your parents, and you shouldn't be here. Like you're too young, and this is a dirty, dangerous city.
I didn't even think prior to this that like this is how you ended up like at the donut shop thing. Like, so this was the same time.
Yeah. I think so many bad events happened just day after day. I think I was really only down there for a couple weeks. And so
do you, like, in hindsight, because this is how I feel about like all my prior shit. Like, I really don't remember everything that happened. I just remember, like, I almost have blocked it out mentally because it was so dark, and like it's like, you ever seen Boogie Nights?
Oh yeah.
Like, there's a part of that movie where it turns super dark, and like the drugs aren't fun anymore, and everybody's like addicted, and they're doing like the sex stuff turns dark, and like that's how I felt during that period. Like, when you look back on it now, is it something that like it's funny to you, or like just it still freaks you out a little bit? Or
Definitely freaks me out because I just think if I didn't have my parents and their resources and their love and their forgiveness, I would have been homeless. I mean, I would have been,
for sure.
I would have been one of these people you see downtown or living in a tent. I mean, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you probably wouldn't be here.
I'd probably be
still.
dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crash a car, you know. I mean,
You
I did
definitely
crash a
would have
car.
fucking started jerking off with that guy in the motel room at some point. You've been like, he's not that bad.
It's
He's
true. It's the only time it happened. You're right. The second time, I might have not had my guard
the
up.
visual I had of just some guy laying on the bed to fucking blinds closed. Like,
He was standing up. Was
Oh,
a stand-up jack-off kind of guy. Yeah.
it's just such a, like, those motels in Hollywood are what I think of with Hollywood. Like, there's all this like money and business, but it's like everybody's making money off of the talent, and the people that are trying to become the talent have to go through so much hell that it's like, that's the reality of being there. I mean, you hear about some of these comics that have actually like succeeded in LA, and it's not pretty. Like, it's just gross, man. But
Yeah, and it's just a huge city with a lot of people and just a lot of really sketchy people too. I mean,
everybody's trying to make money. But okay, so donut shop, what went down?
yeah. So then I started hanging out with these different guys after I got kicked out of the house in Venice Beach, and
What
it
kind
was
of
in-
car were you in? by
I was
the
in
way?
an Oldsmobile Alero, I think, a white Oldsmobile Alero.
Okay.
So
It wasn't like you weren't driving a flashy car.
no.
Okay.
No, I had bought a used Lexus earlier that summer, but I totaled it in the Battery Street Tunnel. So I had to downsize to the Oldsmobile. So what happened was I was trying to get back to Seattle. I still had my car, and I was going to drive back with a friend that I'd met down there, had never been to Seattle. And my friend was going to, I had no money. So my friend was going to wire me money via Western Union back when people did that, you know, before Venmo.
Yeah.
But that morning I was hungry. I went to this donut shop. I think I got a bagel and cream cheese, like a Korean donut shop. I don't even know what part of LA it was in, central LA somewhere. And I didn't have any money. So I told them, can I just leave my ID here and then I'll come back, and I need my driver's license back. So I'll give you the money and you give me the ID back. And they're like, sure. So then I go to Western Union where my friend had sent me, you know, a couple $100, and they told me that I needed to have my ID to get the money. They wouldn't give it to me without my ID. So I went back to the donut shop and tried to explain to them that, you know, you got to trust me here. I got to take the ID back so I can go to Western Union, get the money, and then I'll pay you. And they're like, absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you heard a story like that from someone who's homeless, like asking for money? But in your case, it was actually legitimately what was going on. Like,
I mean, who knows if I would have gone back and paid them. I mean, you know, there's a possibility I wouldn't have. I didn't have high moral standards when I was manic. It was all about me. But so I start getting in an argument with the woman behind the cashier, and this customer intervenes, and I was just, you know, so enraged that this guy, you know, essentially is getting involved in my business. I think he called me a racist because, you know, I'm white. I'm yelling at this Asian person behind the counter. And I think I said something along the lines of, you know, if you spoke better English, you'd understand what I was trying to convey, which obviously horrible thing to say to somebody.
Yeah.
And this guy called me a racist, and I grabbed a sugar, like a glass jar of a sugar dispenser,
Yeah.
and wielded it like over his head, like I was going to smash him in the head with it, and told him I was going to kill him. And then I walked out of the donut shop, and this is not funny. I mean, I've endangered people here.
I know.
but,
I just like
I'm
knowing
saying with
you
me
now,
smiling. Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing you now, it's just so, and I'm laughing because your girlfriend just happens to be that same like ethnicity. So it's like the irony there is just like,
She might break up with me when she hears this podcast.
does she not know this story?
I think I've told her this part of the
Okay,
story.
well,
She knows
sorry.
this story. I don't know if she's heard. I think I've told her this part of it, but yes, one of the worst things I've said.
Oh man.
And-
But I mean, it's the equivalent of you being on severe drugs. Like you're completely out of your mind. Like
You're not yourself.
mentally ill. So
Yes.
it's like to hold someone to the same standard is insane, you know, like, and it's one thing I think it's important with this is like having the conversations around this stuff and what it's like as someone that's gone through it, gotten help. Like this was what you were going through, like, and it's real. I mean,
Yeah,
it
and
wasn't, you're not a bad person because you did those things. Like you were sick.
Yeah, you pretty much have chemicals in your brain that are telling you you're awesome, and so you're fun, you're charismatic, you're charming. But the second something doesn't go your way and you face any type of adversity, you just lash out and explode.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, that's how it was for me, and that's what happened here. And so I walked outside, and this donut shop happened to be right next to a police precinct. So I saw this cop walking along, and he looked like just a nice, like,
Welcoming police officer.
yeah, I think he was like a sergeant or a lieutenant or something. He looked very dignified, and I was like, "Excuse me, officer, can you help me? This place won't give me my driver's license back." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll go in there and see what I can do." I think he was like off his shift or something.
Yeah.
So he walks in there, and then he walks out, and he's like, "Hold on a second." He's like, "You stay right there." Like, is going to detain me because he really walked into the donut shop, and they're like, "That guy's threatening to kill people."
Yeah.
So he called, I guess they had also, he's like, "I just got a call about you. I didn't realize it was you when you started talking to me." So someone in the donut shop had called the police. A bunch of cops show up, and I think I was wearing like a gray A shirt, you know, like a tank top, the wife beater tank top,
Yeah.
and then these white framed like Dolce and Gabbana glasses.
My next question was, what were you wearing?
And I had like, partially bleached hair, and it was all spiked up. And the cops show up, and they detain me. And one of them's like, "Oh, looks like we arrested Paris Hilton's brother." So,
Do you have any pictures of you from back then? Because it would be so fucking fun, like to post them.
I might. I
this
think I
episode.
deleted most of them. I
Yeah.
might have. I think I scrubbed most of them off
Oh my
Facebook.
God.
But
It just would be so great to see the before and after. Like,
yeah, I'll see if I can find you one.
that would
just
be
for
great. So
like-
dude, I guess when you were talking, this made me think like, one of my relatives is bipolar, and as a kid, I always heard stories about him where like he would literally, it was this like, he's older. Like I don't want to be super specific, I don't want to piss anybody off, but when he was manic, he would go throughout the neighborhood in his underwear and knock on people's doors and like, I don't know, solicit, products or something. Like, so I think he was doing some kind of sales, like knife sales or some shit like that. And the family just was like mortified when this happened. They had no explanation for it or whatever. So it's not like this type of shit has been happening. I mean, they finally put a name to it or whatever, but like, during that generation, it was this thing that like didn't make sense. I think all they had was lithium to
Yeah.
give, which is not a complete solution for like it was for bipolar 1, I know, but I know other people that are on different types of medications. It's scary too, you know, like it's just it doesn't make any sense and like diagnosing and all that shit. And I know I'm getting ahead a little bit, but like you had this happen, you're in the police car, they take you to LA County Jail. What happens?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was pretty terrified by that point because, well, first, I should tell you about the arrest and the detainment. I mean, they had this big, like fat, kind of stereotypical sergeant show up, like smoking a cigar. And I was talking back to the cops a little bit, and this guy just shows up, just big, fat, black cop cigar. And he's just like, listen, kid, he's like, if you don't calm it down, I'm going to tear you a new asshole. And I was just like, you know, I'd never really been arrested before. And I was like, damn, this is my first experience with the police.
Yeah.
And so I was terrified from that point on. And they put me in this place called the Glass House. I think it's a city-run jail. And there's probably 50 guys in the room, you know, bunk beds. I was the only white guy.
Was it like a gymnasium style, like open space or
open space? Yeah, but it was like towards the top of the building, so it wasn't like high ceiling or anything.
Okay.
I've been at the other jail I went to was a gymnasium type space, but this was like a low ceilinged.
You're the third person on the pod to be an inmate, by the way. So it's
really?
it's always interesting to like compare the different stories, but
yeah. So once I got in there, it was, you know, out of the custody of the police and just in this room with 50 people. I mean, it was kind of fun because, you know, you're still, even though I'm in this terrible circumstance, I still think I'm still manic. I still think I'm awesome. I think like, oh, this is fun. I'm hanging out with a bunch of arrested criminals.
Did they book you like in everything? Like you weren't wearing your street clothes?
Yeah.
Did they give you different, like a different uniform than everybody else? Because I know when like you're kind of at a risk to yourself or whatever, they'll like kind of mark you. Or
no, I was in general population at this point, and so yeah, I think I had a uniform, but everybody in the jail was very friendly. Like the other inmates,
really,
everybody was talking to me, and in fact, one guy was sitting on my bunk next to me. He was an older guy. He referred to himself as an East Side Crip or something like that, an OG. And he's telling me, he's like, hey, he's like, you're probably going to transfer you to county jail. So just so you know, like what we're doing right now, talking, sitting on the same bunk, like you can't do that there. Like first thing that's going to happen when you get into your, you know, your cell room is there's like a white guy is going to come up to you and he's going to introduce himself and you're going to have to hang out with him and his group the entire time.
Yeah.
But the city jail was fun because everybody was integrated and intermingling, and like I would call my friends from the payphones there and put them on the phone with, you know, some guy who's from the Mexican mafia or something, and my friends were just like blown away by what's going on. So I kind of was having fun for a little while there. And then I got transferred to county jail, and that was terrifying. Just the guards that run that place, they're all deputy sheriffs of LA County. And I think they have to spend 2 years there. That's what I heard, before they can go out and work patrol, which is what they want to do.
Yeah.
So they're young, they're angry because they don't want to be in a building all day. They want to do police work. And they're absolute dicks. Like the guy who drove me over there was really nice. The cop is a LA City cop. But then the first cop that like patted me down and inspected me just threw me up against the wall, was talking shit in my ear, trying to provoke me, and was jabbing me in the balls as hard as he could with both fingers, you know, searching for drugs or razor blades or whatever. But
yeah, man, it's unsettling too with, at least when I went to jail, like it's so jarring, and them, like they're used to yelling these same things every time, and like if you don't listen to one thing, then they fucking go all on you, and like it's very intense.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was particularly sadistic. I mean, other people I interacted with there were, you know, more reasonable, but yeah, they're used to being listened to, and they're either going to try to provoke you, or if you just happen to make a mistake, like everywhere you had to walk in the jail, I think you had to have your hands in your pockets, so they weren't like, you weren't able to, you know, swing them at a cop or something. And they had little tape lines or painted lines to take, you know, a route to the clinic or wherever you needed to go. And if you stepped off them or didn't have your hands in your pocket, they would just, in the hallways, they would just, you know, just scream at you.
Jesus.
So yeah, I got checked in there to my bunk room, and exactly as that guy at City Jail had told me, this kind of sleazy looking white guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, Wood." It stands short for Peckerwoods, which is what they call white people in jail and prison.
Yeah.
He's like, "Come meet some other Woods." And he proceeds to give me a tour of our room. Now, this room's like the gymnasium style. There's probably like 80 people in there. And it was one of the most racist tours that I've ever gone on. Just because, you know, we walk by the showers and they're like, "Yeah, you can't shower in here if there's black guys in the shower. If you're showering and black guys come in, you need to immediately leave." They showed they had different pay phones, and only there was, I think, most of the people in the jail were Mexican. The next largest group, or not Mexican, I should say, Hispanic, and then black people, and then white people being the smallest group.
Yeah.
So we had separate phones to use. And then I guess the rationale behind it's self-segregated. I mean, the inmates choose to do this, but it's to avoid fights. Basically, if you piss somebody off in another group, your own crew beats the shit out of you. You know, it's like kind of a self-policed.
Yeah. And
then you divide up the chores. You know, if you're on chore, your group's on chore duty, then you get to control the TV channels for the week, or it's all
self-policing.
Yeah, self-segregated too. I mean, it's just really surprising. I don't think anybody really knows about that unless they've been there.
Yeah, no, it's some of the other people that have come on talked about that quite a bit, and just that it's not even like, I'm sure you didn't necessarily want to be. I've just heard white people are the worst people in jail. Like they're the dirtiest and fucking like the most strung out and sickest and all that.
I would also say the weakest and the least powerful. I mean, our group had like 8 people in it, whereas there was 2 groups of Mexicans. Hispanics, excuse me. Once again, I'm screwing myself over here, but
you're good, dude.
They, you know, had like I guess they call them like immigrant Mexicans, like they were born in Mexico, and then people that were born in America that were more kind of ganged up.
Yeah.
And they were the largest group. And then, so our group though, 8 people, we had our own little corner of the gym, and our leader was named Casper. And he had like a mustache, a crew cut, and a swastika tattooed on his bicep. So he was probably part of some Aryan Nations group.
Yeah.
And I did not really want to. There was one young guy my age who was like kind of a gutter punk type guy. That's how he described himself, that I could hang out with. But otherwise, I didn't really want to hang out with my group because I didn't think they were cool. But then they'd get mad at me if I was talking to any other groups. So
yeah. So what'd you do? How long were you there for?
I think I was only there 2 nights. It felt like a way longer time, but I think it was only 2 or 3 nights.
Well, it felt longer because you didn't know when you were getting out.
Yeah. And there's just not that much you can do while you're there. I mean, there's TV. Some people were playing Uno. I got invited to play Uno by these 2 black guys, and they're like, "You want to play Uno with us?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that'd be fun." They're like, "You better go ask your people first." And so I go back to Casper. I'm like, "Excuse me, like, can I go play Uno with those 2 guys over there?" He's like, those two black guys? I'm like, yeah. He's like, absolutely not. He's like, you look like a tiny little piece of salt next to those two big black guys, and shut down the Uno game. So I had to go back and tell these guys, sorry, I can't play Uno with you.
God damn.
Yeah.
It's so wild. I mean, compared to like what it's like in society and in society now, like to just see that like progression backwards in those environments, like it's legitimately how it is too.
Yeah, I assume it's still like that. I mean,
One of the guys that came on, he told me if someone that comes through is a sex offender, it's like each race's responsibility to handle that person. So when they come in, they burn the person's mattress and beat the shit out of them, and it's up to that person at that point whether or not they're going to put themselves in protective custody or segregation, or whatever you call it. But if they don't, then they kill them.
Oh, so this is in prison.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's like, if they don't do that, then it's going to be an issue for everyone. So like each race has to take care of their own trash, sort of.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's exactly how they have it set up. So they avoid these large jail fights, between, two warring groups.
And when he was saying like, when it does start happening to where like eventually something happens and somebody pisses somebody off, and then that's how the riots end up happening in jail, is like an issue comes up, it can't be mitigated, so they're going to fight it out. And then it's never like this state, like everything's kind of temporary. And, guys like Casper, like they limit the issues, but yeah, it's fucking crazy. And it's not geniuses running this or whatever. It's just,
no, it's people that are very clever and manipulative and street smart. I mean, every single person you talk to either describes himself as innocent or unlucky. They all want to tell you their story about how they got busted. Most people in there were in there for possession or distribution of crack or other drugs.
Yeah.
I didn't really meet anybody that was in there for violent crime, but I didn't ask everybody either. But I mean, our group, if there was a riot or a war, we would have gotten destroyed. So it was, the message to all of us was, don't mess with anybody.
For sure. Did you have like thoughts about that when you were there? What you would have done if shit would have started to go down?
No. I mean, I was mainly worried about getting beat up on my own group because, I don't know, one of the guys that's bunk was next to me, another white guy. I think I made some smart ass comment to him because, I'm manic and I just think I'm cool. And he's like, I'll slap the shit out of you if you do something like that again. So I was just worried about Casper or one of the other older guys in my group just laying the smackdown on me for just, acting disrespectful.
And I mean, you were a 20-year-old kid. I mean, weren't you a model at one point? Like, you were a good...
I was trying to be. I was trying to be, yes.
So, like, probably not in your mind walking around, you weren't... I mean, did you feel like a sweet piece of ass or like...
Funny you say that because I was walking around, and so even back then, back then I had an especially skinny build because I was doing a bunch of coke and just not eating much, on like appetite suppressing uppers, like cocaine. But I still had like a big butt. And so I was walking around in these jail pants, which, kind of look like scrubs, like what, nurses or doctors wear. And this Hispanic guy's like, hey man, he's like, you got that big booty. He's like, you shouldn't be showing it off like that. Like, you should sag a little bit to hide that thing. And so I sagged a little bit, and then Casper sees me walking around. He's like, hey man, pull your pants up. You're white. Like, what's wrong with you? And so it was back to showing off the juicy booty. But nothing. I would have been worried. I wasn't really thinking about, I think the first time we took a shower, I was worried about, kind of like the American History X scene happening to me. But then when nothing happened, I was like, oh, this is probably something that happens in prison. not jail.
Did you see anything in jail, like in terms of relationships or anything like that?
No. Yeah, no. Everybody was pretty much just trying to hang out and pass the
Kill
time
time,
playing
yeah.
games. Yeah, it was all killing time.
So what ended up, you got out and then,
Well, yeah, I mean, I was in there on felony charges. It was called criminal threats. It's a felony charge in California. And my parents, this is where having parents comes back in, saving me. They, hired an attorney for me. I think they found him through, and it's, my brother's
Reference,
friend who was
yeah.
a defense attorney in Seattle, and this guy was really good. And I think his wife was like a prosecutor or something like that. So he had connections. I mean, it's important for crafting deals. I mean, most things now in the criminal justice system are deals, plea deals, and got my charge reduced to a gross misdemeanor of like disturbing the peace or something like that.
yeah.
So when I went in for my hearing, they'd already pretty much worked out a deal and were just presenting it to the judge. And then the judge approved it. But I just remember meeting this attorney through glass, and he's kind of this slick looking guy. And he's like, Mr. Gardner, like, let me explain to you how lucky you are right now. He just kept saying that over and over.
Yeah.
When he was right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you got out of there and then did you come to Seattle or what?
So I got back out, and then I was just kind of like, walking around homeless again, because my car had been impounded when I was arrested, because the car was nearby the scene of the crime. So I was trying to find my car, and I'd go to all these different offices of the police department. They'd say to go to a different office, and I just couldn't find where my car was. And then I forget what happened. I think I tried to go back to the house that I was staying at in Venice Beach, was able to crash there, but then they kicked me out. And my parents, through NAMI or some other mental health organization that like networks parents together, they got in touch with this lady who had a bipolar son who's now grown up. And she basically picked me up from somewhere, put me in a hotel for the night, and then took me to the airport the next day.
Okay.
It's like a woman in like her 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
This is like some parent network volunteer type person. So I really got saved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you got back to Seattle, was it like treatment or like what?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I didn't immediately go into treatment. In fact, I mean, my parents tried getting me into treatment, but I would always go for a little bit. I refused to take medication, which is what I needed. And it wasn't really until like 4 months or so later, I was still getting into trouble in Seattle. Like it wasn't, the troubles continued. And it wasn't until I eventually just naturally dropped back into a depression that I was open to going, seeing a psychiatrist and starting drugs, medication.
How long did it take for the drugs to kick in?
Well, I was depressed, so I just continued to feel depressed when I started taking lithium. That was the first drug I took because they were worried about, some of the mood stabilizers bringing me up back into a manic episode. So they started with lithium, which is a mood stabilizer, but focuses on keeping you down. But after about 4 or so months of being on that, my doctor's like, well, if you're still depressed, we should add another drug that will lift you a little bit. And that's when they added Lamictal,
Yeah.
also called lamotrigine, which is actually a seizure drug.
I've taken it.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. When I was in my version, I was taking like 1,000 milligrams a day of it.
Okay,
I was
wow,
taking
that's a
it
lot.
recreationally.
Lamictal?
Yes.
Recreationally.
Yeah. It was not a good look.
What did it make you feel like?
A lot of the things that you're talking about. Like I pretty much induced my own mania.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's I relate to a lot of the things that you're talking about for sure. And it was scary, It at one point I was prescribed that for like I was diagnosed for the same type of stuff. Since then, I've gotten some different treatment, and it turned out to be something different than that. Like that's one of the scariest parts about all this is like you're taking this medication and stuff. You don't really know if it's like we're gonna try this, see how this works, and like luckily you figured out a combination that works for you. There's a lot of people they never find that combo.
Yeah, I don't think most do, or people have relapses. They go on the drugs, but then they're fine for a while, but then they start feeling manic, and then they stop the drugs. My doctor, my current psychiatrist that I've been with for pretty much since 2008, told me that I'm part of a small population of people that respond really well to lithium.
Yeah,
And
I took it once. That's one of the worst medications I've ever taken. I felt so weird, man.
they probably put you on a strong dose of it then.
Yeah, it was physically just my insights were I just couldn't handle it. But
Yeah, I mean it's really bad for if you're on a high dose, it's really bad for your kidneys long term.
I remember that.
They've been tapering mine off. I was on 1,200 milligrams a day for probably close to 10 years.
Damn.
And then since then, they've been tapering it off 300 milligrams per year. So now I'm only taking 300 milligrams. I'm taking 1/4 of what I was taking. And eventually I might only need the Lamictal, which would be good because Lamictal doesn't do anything to your kidneys.
Did you ever take Seroquel?
No. I took it for fun once. It's like a horse tranquilizer, isn't it?
Dude, I have a buddy. I've tried to talk to him about doing this, and he's just I don't think he's going to do it because it's his the way it's manifested for him has been too intense. But he has schizophrenia, and he took so much Molly and stuff in college that I think it like induced it, and now he lives with it, and or it manifested at that time. I don't know.
Yeah, you can have a psychotic break from taking certain drugs.
But I remember I started taking Seroquel at one point, and I think it was like 300 milligrams or something, the dose, or 100 milligrams or something. Like I had to cut that thing down to the lowest amount, like literally a sliver of a dosage, because you take it and it just knocks you out cold. The psychiatrist I was seeing before, or who was prescribing me this, I was waiting to go into his office, and this kid came out and he was just like bouncing all over the place, like super bad ADHD. He was like 8 or 9 years old. You could see it right away, just like bouncing all. And we were talking about taking Seroquel, and he's like, yeah, that kid that just was in here, he takes 1,200 a day.
Wow.
During the day. Like he was on Seroquel when I saw him bouncing off the wall. And I'm like, I couldn't, my buddy, the schizophrenic one, he gained like 100 pounds from that medication. He would take it and just eat the house every night. And there's just so many side effects. Like I've been on Lexapro for off and on for like 12 years. I'm terrified to get off that medication.
What does it do for you?
It's an antidepressant. Sometimes I don't know if I like just don't feel as much happiness because I'm on it, and or as much sadness, but I still have waves of it at times, but I've gotten better. Like, I was talking to a friend of ours. I don't want to use her name, but you know her, and she's going through like a wave of depression right now. And it's just like, dude, there's no silver bullet. Like I said to her, it's like, I know you feel like shit. There's nothing I'm going to say that's going to like change that, but just know that like, it's gonna pass, and it's like, it's time. And like, you gotta just be kind to yourself. Cause when you get into that lull, it sucks, dude. You never know when you're going to get out of it. And like, it just, what's the anhedonia? Is that?
Yeah, where you don't feel any pleasure.
Dude,
yeah.
Like when you get to the point where you don't want to eat or you don't want to have sex, you're sick. Like
Yeah, it's basically,
dogs do that when they're about to die.
yeah, it's basically mental illness becoming a physical illness. And yeah, I mean, as you just alluded to, they really don't know that much about the brain. They don't know what chemicals are causing schizophrenia or bipolar or any of these things. And they don't know what about the drugs is interacting with your brain chemistry to resolve them. All they know is how you complete the checklists of how you're feeling and how you tell them you're feeling, and then your behaviors. And that's it. And then they can try giving you different drugs and see if those things change. But they don't know the causal relationship at all, in terms of how you got that way or how the drugs are going to counteract those things. And yeah, schizophrenia is the worst one because the treatments are just the least effective. They just do things that kind of beat you down, but they don't actually solve the root problem, as far as I know. I don't know as much about that one, but I know it's, obviously way more severe than bipolar.
Dude, I feel so bad for him, that buddy of mine, because he's a good dude, and like he was sober at one point, and I love him. I love the dude, but like I started talking to him. I was like, "What is it even like?" And he's like, "Well, they're like he's like, I listen to the voices sometimes, like because they're friendly. Like it's not like." And then he has to remind himself not to, like it's like The Beautiful Mind is what he said, that movie with Russell Crowe, like where it's like you have to turn your friends away, and like it doesn't feel good because they're always there, but like if you encourage it, it makes it worse. So it's just fucking crazy, dude.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know someone with schizophrenia and they have to listen to music constantly just to helps them quiet the voices. I mean, I can't imagine living like that.
It's fucking wild. I mean, you are very normal now, though. I mean, comedy's probably the craziest thing you do now in terms of like out there stuff. I mean, do you feel good with where you're at, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've felt great really ever since being on the drugs. I would say for 6 months to a year. That was when I was, I guess, 21, 22. And it really was, I felt normal for the first time. I mean, as a kid, I was going in and out of these depressions starting at 13. And now all of a sudden, I just am at this normal baseline where now my entire world and how I felt was informed by my experiences as opposed to chemical imbalances in my brain. So it wasn't easy. I mean, I was going to therapy. I'd re-entered school. I had part-time jobs in retail. So I was having to learn how to talk to people and do things, without it was great not having the depressions, but also without the kind of almost liquid courage or invincibility of mania.
Yeah.
And so I had to rebuild my life, but it was just being able to do it from a stable baseline was just so empowering.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any advice for anyone that might be going through something similar, or resources, or like this is kind of on the spot, but like in hindsight, looking back, like, is there anything you wish you would have known or that could have helped you?
I don't know if there's anything that could have helped me because when you're, at least for me personally, when I was depressed, I didn't really want help because I didn't think I deserved it. And when I was manic, I didn't want help because I didn't think I needed it. I thought I was fine. So unfortunately, I think I had to go through this cycle for a few years and, wreak havoc on the world around me to get to that point where I was depressed again and finally accepted treatment. I think kind of the only thing that was a missed opportunity was I did see a psychiatrist after my second manic episode, and they prescribed me Lamictal, but no lithium. And I think that was a mistake because the Lamictal just brought me up without any, limiter on the top end. And I just went into a manic episode. So it's tough to blame myself because I didn't know anything, or the doctor because they're just using a medication. It's
fucking crazy.
So in terms of advice, it's just tough to give somebody advice because I remember what it's like to be in that state. And, I could say to these people now, trust the people around you that care about you. But everybody that cared about me was saying, John, you need help. And I was not listening to them. So,
that's some advice though. Try to listen to the people around you that you can trust.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. But, it's just hard to when you're in that state of mind.
Oh, it is. I mean, Mike, who just came on, he's been, I think it's probably fine to talk about it. He had an issue where like stress induces, like it puts him out of whack, and he's had a kid and some stuff going on at home that was really intense, and he started getting out of balance, and he wanted to do something, and he was really ramping up, and he came and talked to me about it. I was like, hey man, like, I don't think this is something, like 3 months from now, if you look back on it, I don't think this is something you want to be doing. And he listened. Like, so it's like, you can do it. It's almost like you got to like stop trusting your instincts temporarily and just listen, like let the other people in your life drive the car.
Yeah.
In terms of decision making. But I mean, if anybody's watching or listening, I'm sure like you'd be willing to like share some insight if that's helpful. And Mike's another person. We're not going to have a million people. I'm not like opening the floodgates for you, but there are other people out here that have issues like this. And I'm happy to answer any questions for my own stuff.
Yeah. People are welcome to contact me too. And when I started doing my jokes about having bipolar, I would occasionally get people come up to me and say, I got a friend that has this, or I think I have this. What I would tell those people is, if they thought they had it, is you don't know what you have. You need to go to a doctor.
Yeah.
Like you don't, like some people want to self-diagnose themselves, or
for sure
they want to think they have some particular issue because bipolar has been glamorized, unfortunately, because of all the artists that have supposedly had it. But you want to go to a doctor, and you want to get a second opinion too from a different doctor.
Yeah. The water, like if you throw substances into the mix too, like I remember when I was in treatment, they're like, we don't know what's wrong with you. Like we have to clear the water a little bit here before we can see what's at the bottom of the lake. And like, if you are smoking weed all day, every day, or you're doing Molly all the time, or like, it adds another layer of complexity. So
yeah, that's the other thing too. If you're starting treatment for any type of active disorder, you have to be, I went clean when I started taking lithium, and I didn't even drink, stopped smoking weed.
It fucking wrecks you.
Yeah. And it's just a variable that you need to eliminate, to see if that's affecting your mood at all.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you for coming on. I got to say a couple things here quick. Anybody who's watching us on YouTube, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments section. Also hit the like button and hit the notifications bell to find out whenever we have upcoming content. Doing those things helps us with the YouTube algorithm so that we show up on the discovery page, and it helps us a lot. So if you like this episode, throw a comment in. If you got a question for John or myself, feel free to reach out. And do you have anything you want to plug, just social media or your website or anything like that?
Yeah, just my Instagram, john.e.gardner. And that's really all I got. Come see me at Laughs. I'm there all the time.
Fuck yeah. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate and review us. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to do those 3 things to help us out. And as always, follow us on Instagram at FNFpod. We're going to leave you with Jaga.
I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. My wave pool, my wave pool. Welcome to 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 my wave pool, my wave pool.